On the face of it, it's trashy, so-called reality TV that embodies the worst stereotypes about Essex, stilettos, fake tan, and even faker personalities. If you added up the collective IQs of the entire cast of TOWIE, you'd be lucky to reach double figures. But behind the glitz and glamour, there's a very dark side to this programme which has graced our screens for the past 13 years, thankfully a lot less than at its peak. One doesn't have to do much searching online to find out the links TOWIE has to organised criminals in London and Essex. Despite the show's name, a lot of the original cast hail from areas of London, and large parts of the show are actually filmed in the London suburbs. In this episode of London Uncovered, we'll be exploring this murky world where reality TV meets reality crime. This is a world in which most people have only seen one side of, but it is the other, hidden side, which is perhaps the most deplorable. The benevolent TV show is a far cry from the organisations and crimes that this show provides a facade for. You're watching London Uncovered, and this is the dark side of TOWIE. The Only Way is Essex first aired in October 2010, set primarily in the town of Brentwood. Up until then, it was virtually unheard of, a bland, small commuter town just outside the M25, which in the 1990s was called the most boring town in Britain. The show brought a massive amount of media attention to the town, briefly boosting tourist numbers as people from across the UK arrived to go on so-called TOWIE tours, visiting the shops owned by stars in the show like Gemma Collins and Joey Essex. Despite the latter's surname, he actually hails from South London. Amy Childs was another member of the original cast. She was originally from Barking, East London, whilst Gemma Collins was from Collier Row, a suburb of Romford. Mark Wright Jr. was also a prominent cast member. Due to potential legal issues, the source does not give the names of the TOWIE stars or the people believed to be incriminated in the particular offences, but a report from Essex News and Investigations from 2019 makes for interesting reading. 4 fathers and an uncle of TOWIE stars from the past and present were named in the Tiberius report of 2002. 3 of them can be linked to the Palmer Syndicate, the syndicate headed by murdered gangster John Palmer, who was shot dead in TOWIE Heartland, Brentwood in 2015. 2 of these men, one believed to be a father of a TOWIE star, another believed to be an uncle, are described as being extremely violent. The dad has been named as Cuthbert, not his real name. The uncle, Malcolm, again, not his real name. Cuthbert was believed to have been so high up in the chain of command in Palmer's syndicate that he travelled with him overseas. Both men were involved in a fight in 1986 which saw a man stabbed to death in London. Whilst they were charged with murder, GBH, and possession of an offensive weapon, they were only convicted of the 3rd offence and received a mere 12-month conditional discharge. Just 4 years later in 1990, Cuthbert was jailed for throwing ammonia in the face of a police officer. They were believed to be involved in the importation of cannabis and cocaine across the northeast of London as well as in Essex. Their main areas of operation were Chigwell and Buckhurst Hill. They operated out of a former pub which they had converted into a bar in Buckhurst Hill, whose clientele were almost exclusively criminals. It was believed to be involved in the laundering of drug money and the proceeds of other illicit activities for the Palmer Syndicate. Meanwhile, another TOWIE star's father, named as Melvin, is also linked to organised crime, this time via the Hunt Syndicate. Another upper echelon criminal, Melvin was known to be actively recruiting corrupt police officers in the 1990s. It has long been reported that the Hunt Syndicate contains a relative of a reality TV star. Melvin was a police informant, registering in 1998 to detectives in Ilford. He passed on information from corrupt detectives to Hunt, and he himself was believed to be involved in substantial drug importation, predominantly cannabis, as well as cocaine. There are many other links to criminality in TOWIE which have surfaced recently. Mike Hassini from Brentwood was jailed for 6 years in late 2021 after he was caught with over £70,000 worth of cocaine. He featured on the show between 2015 and 2018. In April of 2021, he was caught by Met Police surveillance, exchanging a brick of cocaine with Gary Bear in Hornchurch. Hassini was stopped by police, who found a collection of burner phones and the cocaine. Hassini was imprisoned for 6 years, whilst Bear was jailed for 5 years for his part in the deal. Gary Bear is actually a relative of Stephen Bear, the disgraced voyeur who took non-consensual videos of his TOWIE star girlfriend, Georgia Harrison, as they had sexual intercourse in their back garden. Meanwhile, another TOWIE face, Cara Kilby, Her boyfriend, Daniel Harris, was accused of running a multi-million-pound drugs empire across London, pulling in approximately £400,000 a week in 2017. The operation involved using couriers disguised as trainee taxi drivers on mopeds to ferry cocaine around the city. Originally from Liverpool, Harris moved to London and became an RBS trader. Why he left a legal, well-paid and respectable job in the legitimate economy to become a drug dealer is unknown, but it is clear that his financial skills enabled him to become a major drugs player. He was arrested in March 2016, where he was found to have stashed £116,000 in cash in his daughter's bedroom. They lived in Faden Boyce, part of Essex's so-called Golden Triangle, along with Chigwell and Buckhurst Hill, all in the Epping Forest district. Incredibly, Harris served just 2 years inside for possession of criminal property. He was acquitted of all the other charges he faced. Another man acquitted in the face of seemingly overwhelming evidence, Brentwood native Lewis Bloor was the second TOWIE star up in the dock in 2021 for conspiracy to defraud through a diamond investment scheme worth £3 million. Approximately 200 people were conned into buying diamonds at a 600% markup, with Bloor, then 31, accused of playing a key part in one of the companies involved. However, the case was thrown out of court after the CPS failed to disclose evidence that could have helped the defendants. Bloor appeared on the show for 3 years from 2013 to 2016. The alleged offences were believed to have occurred between 2013 and 2014. Yet there is still more to come of TOWIE's links to the criminal underworld. The stepfather of Billy and Sam Fairs, Dave Chatwood, was arrested for his part in an audacious bullion raid in Belgium. The gang was made up of lifelong professional villains from Essex, London and Kent. The robbery involved an inside man, Brian Mulcahy, a lorry driver. He called police on the E40 motorway, claiming to have been tied up and robbed by a gang of armed men. In reality, he had let them access a lorry containing the gold and silver bullion worth £1 million. Chatwood got sentenced to 4 years, but prior to this, in 2002, he was also imprisoned after being caught with 140,000 ecstasy tablets, 130 kilograms of cannabis, 2 pistols, as well as live ammunition. To some, these revelations are unexpected, but to others, they are not particularly surprising. The cast of TOWIE, like many in the south of Essex where the show is set, are mostly new money types. Traditionally, people in places like Essex who had money would have inherited it. They would have been landowners and the like. After the 1940s, huge numbers of Londoners moved to the south of Essex. Initially working class, they remained so up until the 1980s, when the deregulation of the city meant that people who weren't conventionally intelligent by means of academic qualifications or conventionally rich suddenly encountered vast sums of money. Meanwhile, many of these people also found other opportunities to acquire money: property development, scrap metal, the waste disposal industry, and criminality, which ties these two particular sectors together. The tackiness of the show can be explained a lot by its new money roots. TOWIE did bring benefits to the likes of Brentwood, giving it a nighttime economy which it previously lacked, and boosting tourist numbers, which benefited the wider local economy. Many residents were pleased to see the show disappear, but it has meant that the town has reverted to its status of being somewhat uninspiring and uninteresting. TOWIE will continue to irritate many, but it's the darker side revealed in this video which is perhaps the most concerning and may trouble viewers in the future if crime scandals continue to appear in the public domain. There are far more tales to tell about TOWIE, but they will not be told in this video.